Gearheads, and welcome to Garage Talk, a discussion of all things automotive. I'm Cory.
And I'm Matt. And each week this podcast will serve as a catalyst for discussion on all sorts of topics that grind our gears, excite us, or just need an extra bit of conversation.
This week on Garage Talk, we're going to be talking about the history of the SUV, where they've come from and where they're heading. Pretty much where we think they sit as millennial dads nowadays. As we mentioned before, Garage Talk is a discussion about all things automotive, and we want to get your input and feedback. Be sure to like us and tweet us and all that good stuff on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We're found at GT Garage Talk. You can email us at gtgaragetalk@gmail.com or visit our website, gtgaragetalk.com, and kind of give us your thoughts and opinions on everything that we've covered from day one. Here we are recording episode number 4. All right, Matt. So SUVs, CUVs. We've had a lot of discussion about the Blazer on this channel. We've had a lot of conversation about crossovers in general. But do you want to kind of give us a history of where we've been? Maybe the granddaddy of them all?
Sure. Yeah, we did a little bit of Googling while we were here last time and found out that the Suburban is the OG SUV.
Mac Daddy.
That's it. All the way back from 1935 was when it was originally released. And looking at the show notes, there are currently 12 generations
yes.
of the Suburban.
About to kick off the 12th generation, brand new. By the time, this actually hits the air, maybe it will be rolling on the streets, I don't know.
Maybe the Bronco will be too.
Maybe not.
Probably not.
We still haven't seen the uncamouflaged version of that one.
They've only been talking about it for how many years now?
2, 3?
At least.
Yeah. So, anyway, Suburban, granddaddy of them all. Yes, Chevy started it all with the Chevy Carryall Suburban, and first gen ran from 35 to 40, so not a lot of changes going on there. Second gen, 1941 to 46. Anything going on those years? Major world events? 41?
Yeah, maybe something.
Yeah, no. Third gen, 47 to 54. Kind of carry over the same world events there. Fourth gen, 55 to 59. Fifth gen, 60 to 66. And kind of so on and so forth. But it's really since the 90s that they've really taken off. Do you know what happened in 1994 for the SUV market that really kind of took everything by storm?
Competition, maybe?
Well, more or less. Midsize came along.
It did.
I had to catch myself on this. The Ford Explorer, we've got a mutual friend that called his the Exploder for certain reasons, but the Ford Explorer came on the scene and absolutely changed the dynamic of SUVs, of family vehicles.
Most definitely.
And almost instantaneously became the most popular vehicle for families.
Sold like hotcakes.
Yes. They ran into a little bit of trouble. Firestone, rollover lawsuits, and all that fun stuff. And
all the execs lost their jobs.
Yeah. Yes. Would not have wanted to have been involved in any of that rigmarole. I remember in business law in college, we actually covered the Firestone Ford. It was a huge breakup. The two companies had a long history going back with one another, and the controversy about, for those of you unfamiliar with what happened, so Firestone, tire manufacturer primarily, they do other things, but they were longtime partners with Ford Motor Company. They supplied Ford with tires for practically all their vehicles, and starting in 94, Ford released the Ford Explorer. It became massively popular, which meant there were a lot on the road, which when there's a problem with something that there is a lot of, there's potential for a huge mass hysteria and all that, and that's
big problems. Pretty
much what happened because there was a lot of finger pointing back and forth. Ford blamed Firestone for poor tire manufacturing, which caused blowouts, which caused rollovers, and Firestone said, no, your vehicle was designed poorly, it was too top heavy, so the slightest thing could make it roll over. I remember seeing like ABC News reports where they had these big wings on the side of the Ford Explorers, and they were
Doing
hard turning the wheels, going
Yeah.
back and forth, slalom, and trying to tip them over as best they could. I mean, it got crazy
It was huge.
there for a long period of time.
271 fatalities from all of that.
Yeah, that's insane. And anyway, so with all the finger pointing back and forth, there was a big corporate breakup between the two companies, and the fact that we're still talking about it here years later, and I talked about it in my business law class. It was huge for the automotive industry, and that's kind of what started leading into crossovers and where we are now, because the Ford Explorer at that time, trying to keep this as basic as it is, was truck based.
Yes.
So basically, imagine laying a ladder over, sticking wheels on it, and then putting a body of a vehicle on top of that.
To the top of it.
That's what it was. And the problem with that is it's heavy, it's not fuel efficient, there's a lot of components going on there. And crossovers now, the body of the car is basically the skeleton. Instead of the ladder on the bottom with the wheels attached to it, it's pretty much anything that doesn't move.
A unibody construction.
Yeah, and that is the skeleton of the vehicle, and reduces weight, reduces a lot of things, makes it more fuel efficient. You could do a whole lot more with it, shape-wise.
Sometimes it even makes it more rigid, too, so the body doesn't flex as much.
Well, until you start cutting giant holes in the roof with panoramic sunroofs,
yes.
which I'm a huge fan of aesthetically.
Yes.
But for that very reason, rigidity and all that stuff, yes, it does cause a problem. But what are your thoughts on the current CUV market, owning one, Matt Thorson?
So, owning one or not. I think we discussed this in the first episode. My wife currently drives a 2012 Honda Pilot, which, even though it is unibody, I would still classify it as a sport utility vehicle. There is an all-wheel drive option for it, which makes it a little more off-road capable.
It's also got higher ground clearance, so sits up a whole lot higher.
Clearance. That's the sport utility vehicle, when it originated, obviously with the Suburban and even up into the 90s and 2000s, was just that. It was a tall car body on a truck frame,
right.
and that's what made it utilitarian, because you could put a trailer behind it if you needed to. You could take it off road if you wanted to,
right.
and you got to take the whole family and the dogs with you wherever you went.
Right.
That's what made it so brilliant, and I think it's a big part of what's made it so popular too. The shift though from you're talking probably less than 10% of the people who actually own an SUV use it to their fullest potential.
Right. You're talking off-road, you're talking trailer, and you're talking...
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I had a discussion with a friend of mine about the new Suburbans, because he was looking into the possibility of getting a new Suburban for his wife.
One of the brand new ones that just came out?
Yeah, one of the brand new ones, and one with the diesel, the inline six, which I think is spot on for what GM needed as a Kickstarter to that. But kind of that light duty, medium duty diesel range. And I was discussing the possibilities of it, the options for it, and I said, one of his arguments was that they went to independent suspension in the rear now instead of the solid axle, right? And that's also been one of those indicative things of the crossovers, and even
it's all about
now
fitting people in the back and fitting stuff in the back.
Yeah, exactly, and less concern with pulling a trailer, things like that.
Any serious off-roading or any...
Right, which is typically the biggest thing that the automakers have left the solid axle under there for, is for towing. Well, the fact of the matter is, most people who have and or can afford a brand new Suburban,
which are crazy expensive nowadays.
Oh my God, are they six figures? I mean, I'm sure you could
you could probably option one up
that far.
They start at for a base Tahoe, I think you're in the 40s, and the Tahoe's the shorter brother to the Suburban. But
and there's no more room in it than what there is in the Pilot.
Right. Right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
But so the fact of the matter still remains that more than likely those who can afford something like that brand new already have a pickup that they're going to be using to pull a trailer or a boat or whatever.
Well, they've kind of become, especially here in our market, more status symbols than anything else.
Oh, yeah.
Especially Tahoes and Suburbans. And like you said, when it comes to legroom, especially like in the current generation that they're phasing out, not the one that they just released, but the legroom in the middle row is tight, and then in the back row, because of that live rear axle, the back seat, your knees are in your chin,
right.
Riding back there if you're anywhere near average size adult.
Yeah, because the difference in height between where your butt sits and where your feet rest is about 3 inches.
Yeah, it's the cushion that you're sitting on.
Yeah.
But we actually had a conversation with a friend just this week about the advantages of the dreaded minivan.
Yes.
And so minivan started in 1984 with Chrysler, and they really are as tough as this is to say, the best all-around vehicle for
absolutely.
what people use crossovers and SUVs for 90% of the time.
Absolutely.
They get better fuel economy. They have way more cargo capacity because they have a lower floor and a higher roof. And with Chrysler, you can fold every single seat into the floor, except for the front two, and it's just ridiculous to just become a giant cave. He said, it's our friend Mark, he was talking about it. He said the only advantage that it did not have over its SUV and CUV competitors was that it was a minivan.
Right.
So they recently bought a minivan, and that was its only detractor, is it was a minivan.
And he loves it.
Yes.
I mean, he's a man's man, guns
but
and hunting and fishing and all that.
But he also has a truck. So.
Well, yeah, and he has a truck. So, yeah, all their traveling, all the big people moving and everything like that. Yeah, the minivan is where it's at. I actually, before we started, I pulled up Honda's website, and I've got the Pilot and the Odyssey right next to each other on open tabs. And
the Odyssey is Honda's minivan for the uninitiated.
Yes, the Honda Odyssey, cargo space. Odyssey makes it easy to access up to 158 cubic feet of total cargo space. Okay, and you can remove the second row, which is 60/40. You can remove the third row. And it has 19 miles to the gallon in the city, 28 miles to the gallon on the highway.
Not bad.
Same 3.5 liter V6 that they've had for decades now. Let's click over to the Pilot. And this is where I begin to have an issue, right? Because they're essentially, I mean, they're built on close to the same platform, if not the same platform. Same engine, drivetrain, a lot of the same options. Cargo capacity, 109 cubic feet. So almost 50 cubic feet less in the Pilot than in the Odyssey.
Right.
Odyssey starting MSRP $30,790, and that's direct from Honda's website.
Right.
The Honda Pilot, almost $1,000 more starting price for less room. Oh, and by the way, it only gets 27 miles to the gallon on the highway instead of the 28 out of the Pilot.
We Americans, we love our crossovers.
I know.
And you know who's to blame for it, really?
Us?
Yes. Millennial guys. Because I remember growing up, I had two of the predecessors to the current crossover in my family history. So we had an Oldsmobile station wagon.
Oh, yeah.
When I was real young. Fake wood paneling down the side. I was talking to my parents about it just this past weekend. And that thing was a beast, but we took it on road trips. It hauled everything. It was the family truckster of the 80s and the 90s. And then, like I said, in 1984, Chrysler changed the game, and they brought on the minivan. So we had a 1992 Plymouth Grand Voyager that followed up. We traded in the Oldsmobile, got the Grand Voyager. We went to Disney World in that. We road tripped from Texas to Florida in that thing. And my grandparents had a 94 Dodge Caravan. And So, yeah, we've got minivans in our history. I know you said you really did a lot of your first year driving in a minivan.
Yeah, that's what I learned to drive in.
Yeah.
I was homeschooled, and so I had the opportunity to learn how to drive from my parents. Texas had a cool little process there where you did all of your training and learning through time with your folks. And so one of those opportunities was a 6-hour road trip from East Texas to North Arkansas, where my grandparents lived. And yeah, I mean, set the cruise, kick back. I mean, the 3.8 V6 in that Grand Caravan, and just let it eat. I mean, it did great. Plenty of room.
It is the perfect road trip vehicle. So I'm also a youth pastor. I take teens and people on all sorts of trips. I've rented a minivan and even full-size van, and we've had fun with them. Like I said, you can fold all the seats into the floor. We folded the middle row down once, and I was dropping students off. The last one was sitting in the back, and I was his chauffeur. It was basically super uncool limo, but it was a fun experience.
But what is it that makes them so uncool? I mean, they've been around for...
Well, it's because we grew up with them. Plus, they're a utility box on wheels. Styling-wise, they're not pretty to look at. I will say the Chrysler Pacifica, they're currently redesigning it. I'm not as big a fan of the redesign, but the 200-inspired design on the Pacifica, and I'm going to owe myself for this, picture of a Pacifica in the show notes. But it was curvy, it was flowy, it looked nice. Would I spend the $40,000 to buy one? Probably not. Yeah, and then we've referenced the Honda Odyssey. They like their little jagged line on the window line that looks like a lightning bolt. I think they even did like a 80s van commercial for it when they first released that body style.
The van beckons like no van before. The technology-packed Honda Odyssey.
Yeah, I would blame the fact that we grew up with them as part of the problem. And, you know, when us millennial dads, I'm 33, when it comes to buying vehicles that haul all our stuff, all our kids' stuff, all our kids' friends, whatever it may be, we want it to also look cool. And I've referenced the vehicle that we dove into this market with our family is Jeep Cherokee Trailhawk, the off-road version. So it's got the knobby tires and the red tow hooks. You can't forget the red tow hooks. That's like a key pillar of all the Trailhawk models. But it's the cool manly version. It's not a minivan. And yes, I have taken it off-road. Did not get it stuck. Had fun. Went out with another Jeep buddy with his TJ, and had a little fun one weekend. But he obviously could do more serious off-roading than I could. But we still had fun with it. But it is that idea of freedom and that idea of style that I think they're appealing to millennial guys like us with families, saying, you don't want that boring minivan, you know, here's step up, pay the extra $1,000 and get the Pilot versus the Odyssey.
Well, and I'm on Dodge's website now, looking at the Grand Caravan,
which it is officially dead as of this recording. I read an article just yesterday that I believe the last one rolled off the production line, which is happening a lot. The last Impala rolled off the production line just this week, and I believe the last Dodge Caravan rolled off the production line this week.
Wow. So. And the C8 just started.
Yeah.
Like, 3 weeks ago, something like that?
Yeah.
They just started producing those.
So.
I would love to hear the listeners' feedback on this, because, I mean, and maybe I'm an oddball, maybe I'm not the norm. I would actually kind of hope that I'm not the norm. But I love station wagons.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's the thing. For us automotive gearheads, like the shooting brake concept is all the rage. Cadillac had the CTS V Wagon,
Oh,
big V8 rear-wheel drive,
and
wagon.
a 6-speed manual transmission.
Yeah, and it didn't last. They couldn't sell enough of them to
Yeah.
make it worth its while. I've seen your friends and you yourself sharing about the Charger shooting brake wagon concept, which they
Absolutely.
had that.
Beautiful.
It was called the Magnum,
Yes.
but
Yes.
that was before the Hellcat engine and all the fun that
Oh, yeah.
FCA has brought
Well,
us.
but
in
you
the-
could still get it with the 5.7
Right.
Hemi. I
Right.
mean, 350, 360 horsepower in
in a wagon.
in a wagon.
in a people and stuff hauler.
a front engine rear drive wagon,
Yeah.
even at that.
With a low center of gravity that might actually be able to turn without fear of rollover.
Yeah. And I still want one. I would have one. I just got to convince my wife of it.
Emily, you heard it here.
That's right. But even the minivans, I mean, again, I understand the SUV is kind of that status symbol that,
Right.
you know, I don't know what else to call it, because for me, that's really what it boils down to, is styling.
Right.
It's more capable. It's more comfortable.
Right.
It's better equipped in a lot of cases, especially for the money.
Right.
And yet, it's dying. The Grand Caravan,
Yeah.
the granddaddy of
Yeah.
the minivan, is dying.
And I mean, the cool remote sliding doors and all that. I mean,
Yeah.
anyone who's had a kid that flings open a door in a parking lot, you're like, whoa, stop that. Luckily for us, having the Trailhawk version, for any of those of you familiar with it, the lower half is all black plastic cladding, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
thick too. So the first thing to hit another vehicle, if we were to fling the doors open, is that black plastic cladding, which is meant to stand the test of time
Right.
versus a paint job. So it's really the other person that has to look out for us, not so much us swapping paint with anybody.
Right.
But so America's appetite for crossovers and SUVs has bled into something that 10 years ago I think would have been unheard of. And that is European, and especially European luxury automakers and sport automakers diving in to the sport utility and crossover market that never in a million years would we have thought possible. In fact, I believe Ferrari stuck a flag in the sand and said, we will not. But as of this recording, they're working on the legality of what they're going to call the thing that they've already designed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I put a few notes in here. Lamborghini's got the Urus.
Yeah.
Ferrari's got the whatever they're going to end up calling it. But it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Aston Martin, just this past week.
DBX, I think
Yeah.
they're calling it, or something like that.
So, Aston Martin is a British car maker. They do sports cars. When you think James Bond, especially the current iteration of James Bond, drives Aston Martins. They are gorgeous vehicles. That they're gorgeous, and any one I see on the road, I drool over. The adaptation of the flowing lines of an Aston Martin don't exactly translate to a tall crossover SUV.
No, but I will say, and I'm looking at pictures of it right now, it does a lot better job of translating than the Urus. And as much of a Volkswagen
Yeah.
fanboy than I am, it does a better job of translating even than the Porsche.
No, but who in a million years, just like I said, 10 years ago, would have thought Porsche,
Yeah.
or as you call them, Porsche, would have not one but two SUVs in their lineup? That Lamborghini.
Yeah.
Granted, Lamborghini did start as a tractor company, so they've kind of got it in their roots.
Well,
but
yeah.
the
This is not a tractor.
No, it is not a tractor. It is not utilitarian. It is.
And it only kind of competes with the American versions, too. So
Right.
the SRT Trackhawk
Right.
Grand Cherokee, which, again, if I could afford one. Oh my gosh.
700 plus horsepower. And
There's one that lives, well, not the Trackhawk, but an SRT 8 that lives on my road.
Yeah.
And I love hearing that thing rumble by.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful.
And see, that's another thing that helps, again, us millennial guys.
Yeah.
They're not cramming those engines in minivans, although that would be awesome. You've got all that room in the back to do whatever you wanted back there, and then you could put like a frunk in the front,
sure,
where the engine used to be.
Well, and I've seen YouTube videos too of guys putting turbos on those little V6s, and just front wheel drive roast all the way down the road, white smoke and all.
Yeah. So that kind of, I don't know. Do you have any further thoughts, further complaints, suggestions? Where do you stand? Are y'all going to buy another crossover? You've got your eyes on one. I know I've got my eyes on several. I have not gotten rid of the itch.
So the next vehicle that my wife wants, and we live in Texas, right? And we live in America. So bigger is better.
Yes, naturally. Especially in Texas.
We have a third row SUV at the moment, and it's great. It's a lot of fun. It does exactly what we needed to do. My wife would love to have a little more room behind the third row. Mm-hmm. So she wants an Expedition. The EL.
Yeah.
Right?
The big one.
Yeah.
The big one.
And I love them. I love the Expeditions. The 3.5 EcoBoost is great. They get halfway decent mileage for a monster of a truck. They're comfortable. They're huge. Actually, the school district that I worked for just recently rented one for our ag department. They're doing a lot of road tripping with several of the kids, so it's great for them. They can load 5 or 6 kids in it, and the bunnies in the back, and go to a show, or whatever the case may be, for the ag department. And
so you're not in the market for a Honda Odyssey?
Well, my wife, again, it's her rig primarily. She drives it back and forth to work, so it'll be what she wants. And she cannot stand the vans at all.
It's our generation, so it's interesting to see what automakers are doing to combat that perception and the technology that they're throwing in them and all that. As for me, yes, we've got our eyes on a few different crossovers. I keep telling my wife that the Cherokee is too small now. We've only got the one kid. He's 2 now, but he will be 2 shortly after the airing of this episode. But when we load up for a trip, we're Tetris fitting all the stuff back in the back of it's a mid-size or compact crossover, so it's not exactly huge in the back. I want the bigger daddy of it, the just plain Grand Cherokee. So I've had my eyes on one for a while. I just saw an article just this morning, in fact, that they are testing the brand new generation of it because the Grand Cherokee is old.
Yes, it is.
The Grand Cherokee in its current form has been around since 2010, I believe.
Wow.
And the skeleton of it, we were talking about unibody construction earlier, the skeleton of it is even older than that. And it was based on a Mercedes product back when Chrysler and Mercedes were joined together. So the new one is going to be Italian based. So
interesting.
There might be a little passion in the DNA of it. So the Alfa Romeo Stelvio is actually the bones of the new Jeep Grand Cherokee.
Interesting.
Which kind of gives me a little bit of pause because Jeep has this heritage of off-roading and ruggedness, and the Alfa Romeo Stelvio, which is their first foray into the SUV world, and it is a gorgeous SUV in its own right. Matt, what would you say Alfa Romeo's heritage is amongst gearheads such as you and myself?
Not good.
Yeah, not good.
Not good. I mean, on the American side of things, we've not seen them in many, many,
Right.
many, many years.
It's only in the past like 5 years that they've come back to U.S. soil. But,
And they came back in a big way.
oh my gosh, the Giulia.
The Giulia Quadrifoglio, oh my
Yes.
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, there was one for sale used in a dealership that I drive by on the daily, and it was everything within me not to go and pretend like I actually had enough money to buy it to at least get to test drive the thing around town.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Alfa Romeo makes beautiful vehicles. All gearheads, I believe, would agree that
Oh, yeah.
pretty much anything that they've ever made is gorgeous and a work of art. But reliability has never been a strong suit of
Yeah.
that brand. So
No, not really.
the only piece that they are really loaning from the Italian heritage of it all is the frame, the unibody frame
gotcha.
of it. I do believe it will have an Italian engine as an option, but a big American V8 will fit under the hood of that as well. So
For those of you who can't see, I just had a really ugly look on my face.
you'll have to check out our YouTube channel for some more.
It's American. Leave it American,
Yeah,
please.
America. So yeah. Anyway, that's something that we've got to look forward to.
Yeah.
Like I anxiously await the new Jeep Grand Cherokee, and
Do you think the Cherokee will have a third row?
yes,
Okay.
I think that is coming. But, yeah, I think that I mean SUV, all the things. That's
Right.
where we are.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't even touched on the fact that Ford Motor Company has said, you know what, forget all the cars.
Oh, yeah.
Like we're done with cars. The only car that we're going to continue to make is the Ford Mustang.
Yeah.
Which,
And you go to their website right now,
Yeah.
they have 3 options available. The Mustang is one of them.
Right.
The Fiesta,
which is dying.
unfortunately, because it's an awesome little car.
Right,
It really
right.
is. For the price point especially. I mean, $24,000, almost 200 horsepower, 6-speed manual transmission. It's an awesome little car.
Yep.
Just especially like this is a side note. This is bonus content right here. For those of you who might be in the market for a college car, something just starting out, I would strongly recommend at least going and checking out the Fiesta.
Yeah.
For the price, for what it is, you can get one as cheap as like $16,500, $17,000.
Which in today's market, it's crazy.
Yeah, and you can get it in a hatchback or a coupe.
Right.
If you get the ST, it has to be a hatchback,
Right.
which is the reason why I don't have one, because my wife says she hates hatchbacks.
My wife says the exact same thing, but she had a Mini Cooper.
Which, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I was trying to share this picture to you, because if I have my way, the Expedition that we get will be a Hennessy Performance
Oh yeah.
Expedition. And so that brings up a couple of things. One is, it's not a cheap vehicle to start with.
No, it is not.
And then
Because
when
you had to buy the vehicle, and then
Right.
you had to pay
And then-
Hennessy to do all the upgrades to
Right.
it.
Yeah. Which on that particular one, whether you go with the Navigator, which is 600 horsepower or 650, I think, depending on the engine that you or the setup that you want to go with. But yeah, the HPE package is almost $20,000
On top of
on top of the $60,000 or more
Oh,
that you
gosh.
just spent on. So I mean, when it's all said and done, now you'll have a rig that will compete with just about any other SUV out there
right.
as far as straight line performance. But it's just, I can't not. So that'll be a few years.
Yes, just a few. Garage Talk will have to get a whole lot bigger
A lot bigger, yes.
before that happens.
I bet we review one before I come close to buying one. How does that sound?
You know, that would be a great episode.
That would be a cool episode.
Yeah. I'm all for driving all things automotive.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I've got a fork truck in my history. So, you know, I'll drive anything with wheels.
There you go.
So, yeah. All right. So, that's really kind of where we stand. We're running out of time on today's episode, but we would truly love to hear from you. We were kind of all over the board today. What are your thoughts on crossovers, SUVs? Are you looking at one currently? Do you have your eyes on one? Are you shopping for one? Do you think there are too many? Do you miss the car?
Yes.
Do you miss the station wagon?
Yes.
Do you drive a minivan? Where are you now? Where do you hope to go in the future? We would absolutely love to hear from you on our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all at GT Garage Talk. You can email us at gtgaragetalk@gmail.com. You can visit our website. We've got a form where you can fill out, and it sends us an email that way as well. That's gtgaragetalk.com. But we would truly love to hear from you. Where do you stand on this whole crossover, SUV, minivan, station wagon, death of the car? And where do you see the future of the industry as far as that goes?